If you haven't seen the previous video in this series, follow the link on your screen or click the link in the description or pinned comment below.
Indian! 38 seconds of Universal jacking off to itself.
Exactly my point in the Back to the Future 1 video. That video had 37 seconds of logos and they didn't make a peep about it. Oh, but add one more second.
Then everyone loses their minds.
Back to the Future 3 knew that you'd spend over an hour in the box office line only to discover that Firebirds was sold out. And in case that happened, the movie waste time show.
Yep.
I still don't know why the original Doc Brown scream couldn't be used. Maybe Robert Zemeckis hated that scream and wanted a better one for the two sequels. But to anyone who knows the first Back to the Future inside and out, this new scream is like ear scabies.
Bullshit. I'd argue that this scream was more pleasing to the ears. I'm sure there are some masochists that like to hear this. But Part 3's scream is factually less grating.
A full minute of credits over a real estate listing.
Whoa, are we sending credits now too? Well, this opens up a legitimate new can of worms now, doesn't it? I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark had credits all the way up to the 2-minute mark. Why didn't you send them then? I guess inconsistency is only a sin when others do it.
Hey kids, what time is it?
1955 alarm clocks.
I will be taking no howdy-doody slander today, sir. 5 sins for this malfeasance.
It actually flew.
Yeah, we had a hover conversion done in the early 21st century.
Wow, look who's taking partial credit for the DeLorean's ability to fly. What's this wee anyway, Marty?
Listen, I know that you are hard of hearing, so I will not make fun of you for that. But what I will do is chide you for being hard of hearing and not using subtitles, because Marty clearly says you had a hover conversion done.
Unfortunately, the car will never fly again. It actually flew.
Yeah, we had a hover conversion done in the early 21st century.
And if you had the subs on, you'd know that. I recommend having subs on even if you have perfect hearing.
Einstein!
He's your dog, Doc. Einstein. It's what you call your dog in 1985.
Oh, it's all right, Copernicus.
Man, you guys went a long way to set up whatever you were trying to set up with this dog named Copernicus. I guess 1955 Doc thinks it's hack to call your dog something too obvious? I don't know. This is one of those scenes that come off super weird in the sequels.
I played this in its entirety to show you exactly why this video is 19 minutes long. This is the difference between 2020 CinemaSins and 2014 CinemaSins when they made a Back to the Future video in only 8 minutes. They were no less stupid, but at least they got in and out like a double-double, if you know what I'm saying.
Under this circuit fail, it says made in Japan.
That's racist.
That's 1955.
No wonder this circuit fail, it says made in Japan.
What do you mean, Doc? All the best stuff is made in Japan.
Unbelievable.
What's wrong? What's wrong, Copernicus? Come on.
Oh, you. Did Doc teach Copernicus how to read? This dog has more intuition than when Einstein knew to freak out about an approaching van a mile away in the first movie.
Here's the third time in 3 videos that CinemaSins demonstrates they have literally no understanding of dogs, because even 6 years later, they still don't understand dogs have excellent ears.
Although the filmmakers never intended for anyone to read the articles on this newspaper.
And let me stop you right there, because nobody cares what fake newspapers say, Jeremy. I know this is like a running gag with you, but Jesus, how many of your subscribers find these interesting? This is exactly why CinemaWins got as big as they did. Pointing out interesting things a movie did is a much more engaging concept than only showing what they got wrong. You absolutely removed sin, so you already had the infrastructure in place. You were just too stupid to corner the market. Silly rabbit.
Buford Tannen was a notorious gunman.
Look, Thomas F. Wilson is great and has provided the first 2 movies in this franchise with a fun antagonist. But the idea that a Tannen from 1885 would also be involved in the lives of Doc and Marty is ridiculous. I think everyone would have been fine with the movie having a new villain this go-around. We've been perfectly fine without Crispin Glover.
Hold on, the only reason Biff's ancestor gets involved with Doc and Marty is precisely because they go to the past and meddle with time. Besides, you just advocated for one of the most interesting actor-villain combos to not be a thing. I've said it before, Jeremy seeks to make movies worse.
Great Scott! It's me!
God damn it, did Doc say Great Scott as much in the first movie as he does in this one? Or is it just more annoying now?
So what I'm hearing you say is, catchphrases are sinful. I guess the apples and assholes thing in CinemaSins makes that a hypocritical thing to say now, don't it?
Clint Eastwood never wore anything like this.
Clint who?
That's right. You haven't heard of him yet.
The movie is a dick to Revenge of the Creature.
If the critic reviews of the time were any indication, well, I'll just let Joe Budden describe it for you.
Hear me and hear me good, nigga. I'm here to double down. That shit is a two-pack of ass. The fuck are you talking about? That shit stinks.
I wrote the letter on September 1st, so we'll send you back the very next day.
But why not send him back on the 1st or 2 weeks earlier? Doc has been there for a few months before he writes the letter, so why give themselves such a short timetable to work with?
Because of the letter, numbnuts. If Marty goes back before Doc wrote the letter, Doc in 1885 will have never written the letter in the first place, changing the events in 1955. This, of course, means Marty and Doc will have never found the buried DeLorean, preventing Marty from going to 1885 in the first place.
I know they wanted to do this in the middle of nowhere so that when Marty went back to 1885, the chances of running into anyone would be low. But why did they have to do this inside a drive-in? They could have done this anywhere near here on a road late at night with no traffic, instead of finding a drive-in that just happens to have the perfect length for getting a DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour.
What the kind of complaint is this? They chose a drive-in because it was just as good as any of the other places that you mentioned. It worked, didn't it? Shit, man, this is like asking why did someone pick Charmander instead of Bulbasaur? It's because they fucking wanted to.
This arrow was in no way lodged in the DeLorean before Marty backed it up into the cave, and not one of the Indians shot an arrow at the car when Marty was driving away from them.
Calling Native Americans Indians. Indians are in India, Christopher. Also, they did shoot an arrow into the car because there is an arrow sticking out of the car, proving they did. Just because a movie doesn't explicitly show you something happening doesn't mean it didn't happen. Using your logic, Marty shouldn't exist because we never see Lorraine giving birth to him. See how dumb that sounds?
Mom, is that you?
God damn it. This! Why do we have to keep churning out the same familiar moments?
Says the guy with hundreds of videos beginning with complaints about studio logos.
Okay, so is it just the slightest bit disconcerting that Maggie McFly looks so much like Lorraine Baines? I know they have to figure out a way to put Leah Thompson in this movie, but maybe not in such a way that the McFly-Baines family tree doesn't fork at all?
This is a legitimate CinemaSin. It makes no sense that this woman looks exactly like Lorraine, especially considering her husband looks like Marty instead of George.
Clint Eastwood?
Jeremy hates fun.
You ain't Seamus McFly.
Yeah, Seamus McFly has a mustache. No way he cut that off. He also has different hair color, but the no mustache part is what really gives it away.
Right, because something as easily viewable as facial hair is more difficult to see than the hair color of someone wearing a hat in a dank bar.
Marty runs out of a drinking establishment pursued by a tannin, and I'm going to add 100 sins for the constant f***ing repeats. Marty McFly went to the Prometheus School of Running Away from Things, which is disappointing, considering how many times he changed directions the last 2 times this happened.
Notice the irony of CinemaSins complaining about a movie doing something multiple times, and then in the very next breath bringing up the Prometheus School of Running Away from Things?
So why did Doc have clothes that were in Marty's size? Maybe I don't want to know.
He says, over footage of Marty wearing a shirt 3 sizes too big.
Just the fusion powers the time circuits and the flux capacitor. But the internal combustion engine runs on ordinary gasoline. It always has.
Weird that you never mentioned that before. In the first movie, when Marty asked you if it ran on gasoline, you told him that you needed plutonium, suggesting that the plutonium actually replaced gasoline for the car's fuel. When Mr. Fusion came along, you famously said, "I need fuel," and threw a bunch of garbage into it. Every context clue about the fuel of that car has shied away from gasoline until now.
Thus continues the saga of Jeremy's trigger regarding fuel in movies. Jeremy, you know that these movies are beloved movies and that it's very, very easy to fact-check you, right? In the original movie, when Marty asks if the car ran on gasoline, it was in the context of does the time travel components use gasoline? Here's Doc saying that explicitly.
This is heavy duty, Doc. This is great. Does it run like on regular unleaded gasoline?
Unfortunately, no. It requires something with a little more kick. Plutonium.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear?
No. This sucker's electrical. But I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity I need.
Also, what are the chances that Clara's wagon just happened to be riding past this out-of-the-way spot near this ravine at this very moment?
Considering it's an event that already happened in this movie's history, 100%.
Clayton Ravine was named after a teacher. They say she fell in there 100 years ago.
Yeah, but why was the ravine renamed after her? Clara's a brand new school teacher with absolutely no history with the people in Hill Valley. Seems weird they discover her body and think, let's call this something else in her honor. This stranger did so much for us.
Here's CinemaSins getting that information I just spoke about in the previous sin. Yep, this is how they watch movies. Ask a question, and when that question gets answered, ignore it and turn into Patrick from SpongeBob.
I am trying to be a good person and return it to you.
Return what to who?
Aren't you Patrick Starr?
Yep.
And this is your ID.
Yep.
I found this ID in this wallet. And if that's the case, this must be your wallet.
That makes sense to me.
Then take it.
It's not my wallet.
According to my calculations, we'll reach 88 miles per hour just before we hit the edge of the ravine.
But it looks like there's a little bit more straight track behind the DeLorean, so why not back it up a bit so you're not cutting it so close?
Straight track, eh? Straight. That's what he said. Straight.
Where did you learn to shoot like that?
7-Eleven.
Glad to see the 90s movies following the 80s movie tradition of if you're good at something in video games, then you could do it in real life.
Gran Turismo says, hello.
Maintain discipline at all times. Remember that word, discipline.
I wonder how excited the marshal would be to learn that all his teachings led to a future line of public school principals.
Would probably be about as interesting as This Is a Sin. Not very much.
What's wrong, dude? You yellow!
I don't have anything to say about Marty's trigger words, chicken and yellow, only to say that I hate that they made this part of Marty's character.
Cool. Now that we know your personal preferences, would you mind explaining why This Is a Sin of Buttif 3?
Sure, and I hope you're considering the future, Mr. Eastwood.
Have I made a comment about these awful Scottish accents yet? Wait, they're supposed to be Irish? That's even worse!
How do you lack this much self-awareness? Leah's Irish accent is much better than your English one, which, I will remind the audience, sounds like this.
I've seen many strange things already. Bloody wolves chasing me through some blue inferno.
What? What do you mean that wasn't footage of Jeremy? It sounded just like him. You sure? All right.
Well, that wasn't the footage I was supposed to use, but I assure you that is what Jeremy sounds like when trying to be British.
Great Scott.
I know, this is heavy.
What happens to us in the future? Do we become assholes or something?
CinemaSins, send those lines.
Come on. Jeremy.
I know we were told that the train wouldn't come through till Monday morning, but what if it comes through at an earlier time? Or a different train comes through this track that wasn't scheduled? What if some 1885 hobo wanders onto the DeLorean and starts stripping it down? They're leaving a lot to chance here is all I'm saying. Because if anything happens to this car, they are royally f***ed.
No, they aren't, because that train track isn't finished, meaning literally no train would be coming down this track unless they had a goddamn death wish. This is who you people made famous? The patients are running the asylum.
Everybody, everywhere, will say Clint Eastwood is the biggest yellow belly in the West.
So that's how Rick Dalton got all those roles in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Jeremy makes a pop culture reference that isn't a...
It's a good thing Buford didn't shoot Marty in the face, because what would Marty have done then? I guess die, but seriously, this plan was pretty shitty.
We've done this song and dance before, Jer. Shooting someone center mass is proper shooting technique. The human torso doesn't move as much as the head, so going for the head in a showdown could get you killed.
How the f*** did she know they'd be anywhere near here? Did she just ride around hoping to find them and luck out?
Couldn't have anything to do with the fact that Doc told her he was from the future and that she saw their track model explaining the plan to return to the future now, could it?
Time machine.
We just passed 45, Doc, go for it!
Why does Marty continue to talk into the walkie-talkie even though Doc is not holding his where he can hear it? Also, we will find out in a minute that Doc still does have the walkie-talkie, but where the f*** is he keeping it?
Well, you answered the first part of your question with the second, and I suppose you think pockets didn't exist in 1885, don't you, Slick?
Look, you can tell me the train is this close to the car, but you can't tell me that Marty got the DeLorean's awkward wing door open in time to get out before the train hits it.
Okay, I won't tell you that it happened. Don't need to, because the movie showed it did.
Also, what happens when someone removes themselves from a time period to go to another one? In Back to the Future 2, 2015 Biff says he remembers when he saw the DeLorean fly off and disappear at the end of the first movie. But Marty disappeared with it and was no longer in 1985. Yet there was still a middle-aged Marty living his life in 2015. The Einstein experiment in the first movie proves there was no Einstein for a full minute. So who was that middle-aged Marty? The only Marty that it could be is the one that experienced both Back to the Future 2 and Back to the Future 3. The one that finally gets to drive his truck with Jennifer like he planned to do since the end of the first movie. But the Marty that experienced Back to the Future 3 is the one that doesn't get into drag racing competitions with the bass player from Red Hot Chili Peppers. So how does the Back to the Future 2 middle-aged Marty exist?
You said all that when you could have simply stated that you don't understand the multiple timeline concept this series presents. The fact is, the timeline has now changed by this point. It only exists if Marty isn't taken to the future by Doc, but because it happened, that future is now erased. This movie reiterates that point by showing Marty not participating in the drag race and the facts disappearing.
Also, Doc figured out how to make a time travel machine out of a train, which may be the most dangerous goddamn vehicle to time travel in. Not a lot of mobility on a train if you re-enter someplace where another train is headed your way, but Mr. Glass will be pleased when the inevitable crash happens.
Jeremy is presenting this information as if the time-traveling train is a conventional train that uses tracks in order to travel. The problem with this is that the movie literally shows the goddamn train flying. Flying!
Good handles.
Just put a little weight on the heel.
Oh, get out of town.
Yeah. Yeah, right in the middle. There you go.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
It's really great.